The first time I saw a picture of my own house in a letter meant for an inmate, my blood ran cold. It wasn't a threat, not legally. No violent words, no demands. Just a picture. Crisp, clear, taken from across the street. You could see the old oak tree in my front yard, and the window to my daughter's bedroom. A line had been crossed. A sacred line that separates our world from theirs. But when I took it to the warden, he told me I was overreacting. That was his first mistake. My story is about how a threat that started inside a prison followed me home, and how the system I swore to uphold left me to hang out to dry until it was almost too late. This isn't just about a dangerous inmate. It's about the kind of danger that wears a suit and tie, the kind my own superiors decided to ignore. To get how it all went so wrong, you have to understand the world I lived in for 12 years. I was a senior corrections officer at a state facility. It's a place most people only see in movies, and let me tell you, the movies get it wrong. They love the big riots and the dramatic escapes. They don't show you the day in, day out grind. The first thing that hits you is the smell, a mix of industrial cleaner, stale sweat, and this undercurrent of despair that just clings to everything. Then there's the sound, a constant low hum, buzzing fluorescent lights, the distant clang of steel on steel, the murmur of hundreds of men all talking in hushed, urgent tones. It's a world built on two things, routine and control. Every count, every cell search, every mealtime is a tightly choreographed dance, all designed to keep a lid on a place that's always just 1 second away from boiling over. My philosophy was simple, firm but fair. Inmates are master manipulators. They have nothing but time to study you, looking for weaknesses, for cracks in your armor. They test you from day one. If you're too friendly, you're soft, and they'll try to run you. Too aggressive, and you become a target, a challenge. I chose to be a brick wall. No emotion, no favors, just the rules. And the rules were the same for everybody, from the shot callers running the gangs to the new guys just trying to do their time. My approach didn't make me popular, but it earned me respect. In that place, respect is currency. It keeps you safe. And that's how I ended up on the wrong side of inmate Darren Miller. Miller wasn't some kingpin or a feared enforcer. He was something way more common, and honestly, more irritating, a professional victim. In his world, nothing was ever his fault. The system was rigged, the guards were out to get him, the other inmates were idiots. He was serving 7 to 10 for aggravated assault, a charge he swore was just a misunderstanding. Every single interaction with him was a negotiation. Every instruction was a personal insult. My first real run-in with him happened during a routine cell toss. We'd gotten a tip that a batch of homemade hooch was brewing on the tier, and my team was sent to find it. Miller's cell was on our list. The second we walked in, he started his usual performance. "What is this, harassment? You guys were just in here last month. You got a personal problem with me or something?" I just ignored him and got to work. My partner, Hayes, a younger officer, started on the bunk while I checked the toilet and sink. It's a methodical process. You check everything, every seam on the mattress, every loose fixture, every piece of paper. You have to. These guys can hide a shank in a bar of soap. I found it in the back of his toilet cistern, sealed up in a plastic bag. It wasn't hooch. It was a small bundle of letters and a makeshift ledger, detailing a little gambling ring he was running. Minor stuff in the grand scheme of things, but it was against the rules. So, I wrote him up. No drama, no big lecture. I confiscated the stuff, logged it, and filed the disciplinary report. For me, it was just a Tuesday. For Miller, it was a declaration of war. He saw my by-the-book approach as a personal attack. And since he couldn't manipulate me, he decided to hate me. He started making comments under his breath during count. "Think you're a real big shot, don't you? Everyone gets what's coming to them." Standard inmate background noise. You learn to tune it out, or you'd go crazy. But with Miller, there was something else underneath. A simmering, patient kind of hatred. It was in his eyes every time we crossed paths. Then one day, he brought up his brother. I'd just denied him a specific job assignment in the laundry. His disciplinary record made him ineligible. He was furious. "You're making a mistake," he hissed, his voice low. "My brother, he's on the outside. He's a smart guy. A real businessman. He looks out for family. He doesn't like it when people mess with his family." I'd heard that line 1,000 times. Every inmate has a connected brother or a tough guy cousin. It's part of the psychological game, trying to project power outside the walls. "Is that a threat, Miller?" I asked, my voice flat. He gave me this slick, oily smile. "Threat? Me? No. I'm just telling you. You should be careful. Sometimes things happen. It's just business." I logged the conversation in my daily report, just like always. Inmate Miller made veiled threats regarding an outside associate. A single line of text on a screen. I had no idea at the time, but it was the first tremor before the earthquake. About a week later, Miller gets a visitor. I'm supervising the visitation room, that big, sterile hall filled with plastic chairs and the forced laughter of people trying to pretend they're anywhere else. I saw him walk in, the brother. Liam Miller. He didn't look like a thug. He was tall, wearing a sharp suit that probably cost more than my car. He had the same cold eyes as his brother, but where Darren's anger was hot and sloppy, Liam's was like ice. He was calm, collected, and he scanned the room with this unnerving intensity. I was standing at my post when his eyes landed on me. He didn't just glance. He stared. It was a calculated look, an assessment. He held my gaze for just a few seconds too long, a subtle power move. It was a look that said, "I see you. I know who you are." Then he turned to his brother, and they started talking, heads close together. I couldn't hear a word, but I could feel it. I was the topic of conversation. That feeling of being singled out, of being targeted, is a sixth sense you develop on the job. And every instinct I had was screaming. This was different. This wasn't just an inmate running his mouth. This was organized, cold, intelligent. The threat wasn't in the room with me anymore. It was outside. And that, I was about to learn, is a whole different kind of prison. There's an eerie quiet that comes before a storm. For a few weeks after Liam Miller's visit, nothing happened. Darren Miller became a model inmate, almost unnervingly so. He was compliant, quiet, and went out of his way to avoid me. In prison, a sudden change like that is a huge red flag. It means an inmate has either found God, or he's planning something. And Miller wasn't the religious type. I knew he was just waiting, letting me get comfortable, letting my guard down. The first move was subtle. It came during a random cell search on Miller's tier, not even his cell, but a guy named Santos, one of Miller's known cronies. I was just supervising. Hayes, my partner, was going through Santos's personal mail, standard procedure. "We're looking for coded messages, contraband plans, anything." "Hey, boss, look at this," Hayes said, holding up a letter. The letter was junk, just ramblings from a cousin. But tucked inside was a photograph. A standard 4x6 print. It was a picture of my house. My heart didn't just drop, it felt like it stopped cold. For a split second, the whole world went silent. The constant drone of the prison, the shouting, the buzzing, the clanging, it all just faded away. All I could see was that photo, taken from a car parked across the street. The angle was perfect. You could see the blue shutters my wife and I painted last summer, the rose bushes she was so proud of, and the window on the second floor, the one with the dinosaur sticker on it. My son's bedroom. There was no note, no written threat, just the image itself. And that's what made it so terrifying. The message was delivered with chilling precision. We know where you live. We know where your family sleeps. It was the ultimate violation. The one unwritten rule that separates the job from your life had been completely shattered. They had brought the prison right to my front door. My hands were shaking, but I forced them steady as I took the photo from Hayes. He saw the look on my face. "What is it?" "It's my house," I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. "The protocol here is crystal clear. Any threat, direct or indirect, goes straight up the chain." I bagged the letter and the photo as evidence, documented everything, and marched right to the warden's office. Warden Thompson was a man who lived by the spreadsheet. His world was statistics, budgets, and incident reports. He cared about one thing: keeping the numbers down. Fewer assaults, fewer grievances, less contraband. Low numbers meant a smooth-running facility, which made him look good to the regional office. He wasn't a lawman. He was a manager whose product happened to be incarcerated human beings. I laid the evidence bag on his polished desk. "Warden, we found this during a cell toss in C Block. This is a picture of my house." He picked up the bag, squinting at the photo through his reading glasses. He was quiet for a long moment. I expected shock, anger, an immediate call to the investigators. What I got was a sigh. A tired, inconvenienced sigh. "Officer," he began, setting the bag down, "are you sure it's your house?" "Yes, Warden. I'm sure. It's just a house. There's no address. No note. It could be a coincidence. Maybe this inmate Santos has a cousin who lives in a house that looks just like it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Warden, this was found in the property of an inmate tied to Darren Miller. Miller threatened me 2 weeks ago, mentioning his brother. Now this shows up. This is not a coincidence." He leaned back in his big leather chair, steepling his fingers. "Look, I understand your concern, but you have to see it from my perspective. I can't launch a full-blown internal investigation over a photograph. It's circumstantial. Do you have any idea the amount of paperwork that would generate? The grievances we'd have to fight? Miller would just claim harassment. It's psychological warfare, Warden. A classic inmate tactic. They're testing the boundaries, seeing what they can get away with." "And you're letting them get to you," he said, his tone shifting from dismissive to condescending. "That's exactly what they want. They want to get in your head. You're a senior officer. You should know better than to let a picture rattle you. My advice: document it and forget it. Show them it doesn't bother you. Don't escalate." I just stood there, stunned. He wasn't just dismissing my concern. He was questioning my professionalism. He was turning it back on me. I was the one overreacting. I was the one escalating. He wasn't there to protect his officers. He was there to protect his stats. A formal investigation would be a black mark on his perfect record. "With all due respect, Warden," I said, my voice tight with fury, "this isn't just a picture. This is a threat to my family." "It's a picture of a building," he shot back, his voice firm. "Until it becomes more than that, my hands are tied. I'm not putting this facility on lockdown over a potential coincidence. Now, if there's nothing else, I have a budget meeting." I walked out of his office in a total daze. It was a feeling worse than fear. It was absolute isolation. The system I'd dedicated my life to, the chain of command I was sworn to respect, had just told me, flat out, that I was on my own. That night, I went home and didn't tell my wife. How could I? How do you explain that the danger from work has followed you home, and your boss just doesn't care? I installed new deadbolts. I checked the window locks 3 times before bed. I just sat in the dark for hours, watching the street from my living room window, my service pistol on the coffee table next to me. The peace of my own home had been stolen. After that, the harassment became a campaign of 1,000 cuts, each one designed to make me feel paranoid and powerless. My home phone would ring at 2 in the morning. I'd answer, and there'd just be silence on the other end. Then a click. It happened 3 times the first week. The caller ID always came back, blocked. Then my mail started going missing. Bills, a birthday card for my son, just gone. A few days later, they'd reappear, shoved back in the mailbox, some of them opened and sloppily resealed. The message was clear: we can touch your life. We can enter your private space whenever we want. One morning, I went out to my car and found all 4 tires slashed. Not just punctured, slashed down the sidewalls, totally ruined. I called the cops. They took a report and told me what I already knew, probably random vandalism. Happens all the time. But I knew it wasn't random. There was no proof, nothing to tie it to Liam Miller, but I knew. Inside the prison, Darren Miller was a ghost. Head down, did his work, never said a word to me. But I could feel him watching. And he started dropping these tiny little hints, things he shouldn't know. One day, as I walked past his cell, he said, just loud enough for me to hear, "Looks like you had some car trouble this morning, officer." That's a shame. Toyotas are usually so reliable. My blood ran cold. My car was a Toyota. I had never, ever discussed my personal car at work. He could have only gotten that from someone on the outside. Someone who was watching me. I documented everything. Every silent call, every missing piece of mail, every veiled comment from Miller. I kept a detailed log. After 2 weeks of this, I went back to Warden Thompson. I laid the logbook on his desk. "Warden, it's getting worse. They're targeting my home." He didn't even look at it. He just leaned back, his face a mask of annoyance. "Officer, we've been over this. You have no proof. Slashed tires, vandalism, missing mail, post office error. You're connecting dots that aren't there." Miller knew my car was a Toyota. He mentioned it this morning. How? The warden let out this long, theatrical sigh of impatience. Maybe he saw you drive into the lot one day. Maybe another officer mentioned it. You're building a conspiracy theory, and frankly, it's affecting your performance. Other officers have noticed you're on edge. You're jumpy. He was gaslighting me. Taking my legitimate fears born from a direct threat, and painting them as paranoia. He was isolating me, making me the problem. "I think you need to take some personal time," the warden said, his voice softening into that phony, concerned tone. "You're clearly under a lot of stress. Take a week off. Clear your head." "I don't need time off." I shot back, my voice rising. "I need you to do your job and protect your officers." His eyes went hard. "That's enough, officer. My decision is final. You're on administrative leave for 1 week, effective immediately. And I'm ordering you to see the department psychologist. This obsession with inmate Miller is becoming a liability." I was speechless. I came to him for help, and he punished me for it. He took my badge and gun and sent me home, completely exposed. I walked out of that prison, not as a corrections officer, but as a target. And I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, this was exactly what Liam Miller wanted all along. He hadn't just gotten in my head. He'd used my own boss to get me out of the way. The game had just escalated, and I was losing. Badly. Being on administrative leave was like being locked in a cage I'd built myself. I was cut off from the one place I could get information, the one place I could at least see the enemy. Now, I was just at home, waiting for the other shoe to drop. The psychological toll was insane. Every car that slowed down on my street sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. My wife knew something was terribly wrong, but I still couldn't tell her everything. I felt like I had failed my most basic duty, to keep the ugliness of my job away from my family. The order to see a psychologist was the ultimate insult, a bureaucratic move to paint me as unstable. The session was a joke. A detached therapist asking me about my stress levels. I told him the truth, the threats, the photo, the harassment, the warden's dismissal. I could see the skepticism in his eyes. I knew his report would be filled with words like paranoia and hypervigilance. I was at my lowest point. Liam Miller had won. He'd used the system to neutralize me, painting me as an obsessed, unstable officer. I was the boy who cried wolf, and the warden had made sure nobody would listen. Then, on the 4th day of my forced leave, my phone rang. Restricted number. I almost ignored it, figuring it was another silent call. But something made me pick it up. "Yeah, it's Hayes. My partner." His voice was low and urgent. "Can you talk?" "Yeah, I'm alone." "What's up?" "You shouldn't be calling me." This was a serious breach of protocol. I know. But something's not right here," he said. "Listen, there was a major contraband sweep scheduled for D Block this morning. Top down, full shakedown. Intel was solid. A major shipment of phones and drugs was coming in." "Okay. And they found nothing," Hayes said. "The cells were clean. Too clean. It was like they knew we were coming. The intel was leaked." My mind started racing. A leak for a major op like that? It had to come from high up. A CO might tip off an inmate for a few bucks, but to compromise a whole sweep? That comes from someone with access to the plan. "That's not all," Hayes continued, his voice dropping lower. "Warden Thompson has been acting weird, having these closed-door meetings with some security consultant. This guy isn't DOC. Private contractor. Been here 3 times in the last month. Nobody knows who he works for." The pieces started clicking into place, forming a picture far more sinister than I'd imagined. The harassment wasn't the goal. It was a diversion. "Hayes, what does this consultant look like?" I asked, my heart pounding. Tall guy, late 30s. Always in a designer suit. Cold eyes. Looks like he could sell you a timeshare or snap your neck. Liam Miller. It all made sense. The psychological war against me wasn't about revenge for his brother. That was just the smokescreen. Liam Miller wasn't a thug. He was a businessman, just like his brother said. And his business was corruption. He was playing a much bigger game. He needed to set up a contraband pipeline. To do that, he needed the warden. So he targeted me. He knew my reputation. By the book, couldn't be bought. I was the one officer who'd spot inconsistencies and sound the alarm. So, he had me removed. He created a narrative that I was a paranoid officer with a vendetta. He fed that story to Warden Thompson, a man who cared more about appearances than security. And while the warden was busy managing his problem officer, Liam Miller, the security consultant, was walking right in the front door. He was likely using that access to orchestrate the biggest corruption scheme in the prison's history. The sweep was tipped off as a demonstration of his power. Warden Thompson wasn't just incompetent. He was a mark. Liam had played on his vanity and laziness. Whether the warden was a willing participant or just a fool didn't matter. The result was the same. My prison had been compromised from the top down. My despair turned into cold, hard rage. They thought taking my badge took my power. But I was more than a uniform. I knew how the system worked, its strengths and its weaknesses. I spent the next 48 hours in a frenzy. I started with public records, searching for Liam Miller. I found it, Strategic Solutions Group, LLC. The website was all corporate jargon about risk mitigation. But when I cross-referenced the LLC, I found a list of partners. One name hit me like a ton of bricks. It was a former high-ranking official at the Department of Corrections who'd retired 2 years ago under a cloud of suspicion. This wasn't just one prison. This was a network. I gathered everything: my logbook, the photo, my research on Liam's company, and a signed statement for me detailing everything, including Hayes's anonymized information. I didn't go back to the prison. I didn't go to the local police. I drove 2 hours to the state capitol, to the DOC headquarters. I bypassed the front desk and asked for a meeting with the Office of Internal Affairs, the unit that even wardens answer to. I sat in another sterile office, but this time the man across the desk was different. A seasoned investigator, a former state trooper with eyes that missed nothing. I laid out my case, piece by agonizing piece, presenting the facts, the timeline, the evidence. When I was done, he looked through the folder. He picked up the photograph of my house. "He threatened your family, and the warden put you on leave?" "Yes, sir." He closed the folder and looked me dead in the eye. "Officer, you did the right thing coming to us. Go home. Don't talk to anyone. We'll take it from here." For the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. The investigation was swift and silent. For 2 weeks, I heard nothing. Then, it all came crashing down. Internal Affairs and the state police descended on the prison. Warden Thompson was relieved of his duties on the spot, escorted out of the facility. Liam Miller was arrested at his downtown office. The story that emerged was even worse than I'd imagined. Liam was running a massive contraband-for-hire scheme in multiple facilities. He'd used his brother's grudge as the perfect cover to get close to the warden, assess his weaknesses, and exploit them. The investigation cleared Thompson of direct complicity, but the charge of gross negligence ended his career for good. Darren Miller was shipped off to a supermax facility in another state. And me? I was fully exonerated. I got a formal apology from the director of the Department of Corrections. They offered me my job back, even hinted at a promotion for integrity and perseverance. It's stories like this, the ones that expose the deep cracks in the system, that need to be told. If you've ever felt like you were the only one seeing the truth, or if this story hits home, hit that subscribe button. Sharing these experiences is the only way we can shine a light on what really happens behind those walls. I thanked them for the offer, but I respectfully declined. I walked out of that office and never looked back. How could I? The trust was gone. I had dedicated my life to a system, believing in its structure. But when I needed it, that system didn't just fail me, it actively worked against me. It chose convenience over courage, stats over safety. The real prison isn't always made of concrete and steel. Sometimes, it's a bureaucracy that suffocates the truth. Sometimes, it's the willful blindness of people in power who are too cowardly or compromised to do the right thing. I survived an inmate's brother, but I was almost destroyed by my own warden. I learned a hard lesson. The threats you can see, the ones in jumpsuits, are manageable. It's the threats you can't see, the ones in tailored suits with a friendly smile, that are the most dangerous of all. They don't just threaten your life. They threaten your sanity, your career, and your faith in justice itself. I lost my career, but I saved my family and, in the end, I saved myself. And that's a trade I'd make again, any day of the week. What would you have done in my shoes? When the people who are supposed to have your back are the ones pushing you toward the cliff? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for listening.